Are you someone who would thrive with lots of time freedom? I was thinking the other day about how when I used to work with adult students, and I phrase it that way for a couple of reasons. One, because these were people over the age of 18 and they were adults and students going to college. And also, these were very often folks who had families or other responsibilities. So they were working full time or taking care of children, sometimes doing both, sometimes caring for a family member and raising children and going to work and going to school and. And in working with these folks, helping them to come up with class schedules and figure out how they were going to incorporate, study time into their schedules and that sort of thing, I started to notice that people who had lots of free time, meaning school was the only thing they had on their plate outside of, just regular living. They may not have even been working. They had plenty of time for school and were struggling with their time management. And then there were also the folks who had extremely busy schedules, also struggling with time management because they couldn't quite figure out how to fit it in with everything else that they had on their plate. And very rarely was I meeting with folks who were kind of in that sweet spot where they didn't have too much on their plate, they didn't have too much free time, and they were kind of able to manage things. But being able to work with these groups of people, work with these students, helped me to see that sometimes having a lot of free time is just as bad as having a very busy schedule, because there's this idea that I have time, I can get to it, I have time. And the person who has a very busy schedule feels like they have no time. So on both ends, we have people who are struggling to manage everything that they need to do, or the very little that they have to do. And it felt like the sweet spot was actually somewhere in the middle. You do want things that you have to do and need to show up for, that are scheduled, that are, you need to be there at a particular time kind of things, and a good amount of free time. Now, the ratio of free time to having to show up for things is different for everyone, but there seemed to be a need for both things, not complete freedom of time where, you can just do what you want, when you want, how you want, and also not having so much on your plate that it was too hard to manage everything. This brings me to the question that I started with. Are you someone who can handle having time freedom? So many of us work so hard, or, are hard on ourselves when we're unable to create a life or build a life that is full of time freedom, because we have been told, especially recent years, I would say, time freedom is one of the big goals, to have complete control over your time, to not have anyone, control your time, to not work for anyone, for you to be your own boss, for you to decide when you want to do things and how you want to do it and when you want to do it and where. And all of it sounds lovely. Sounds lovely to me too. So this is not me saying that, I am unaffected by this thinking. But in thinking about that, I wonder if that level of time freedom is good or healthy for everyone. And is that the goal? Like, should that be the goal? I do not have an answer. I am just putting it out there. If you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them or see them in the comments. That maybe the goal is to figure out what works for you, your history, your nervous system, the way your brain works, your life structure, what your values are. Some people value like family time, friend time more than others. Some people have ideas that, you should be showing up for certain things. You should be showing up for family. You should be showing up for friends. You're going to be inconvenienced by the relationships in your life. That is part of having relationship with people and being in community with people, which means there will be some requirements on your time, your attention, your energy, and your focus in ways that might feel good and beneficial and nurturing for you based on your values, your beliefs, and how you move through the world. Whereas someone else, I'm doing what I want, when I want, how I want. I may show up, I may not show up. And you, as someone who knows me, knows that about me, and will love and support me in how I'm moving through the world. I may not be someone who can show up for you in those ways because it's out of alignment for who I am or who this person is as a person. So I think as we're thinking about our lives and the goals and what we want and how we're managing our time, how we're managing ourselves, how we are approaching and structuring our systems and structuring our lives so that we feel, held and supported and functional as we're going about the business of living and achieving goals and that sort of thing, that we are thinking about what's actually good for us and what actually works for us. How have you had the opportunity to have an extended period of time with a lot of time freedom? And what did that look like? I feel like for many of us, because it's not something that we experience very often, I think about folks who go into retirement and they'll say sometimes the first, I've heard 3 months, I've heard 6 months, I've heard a year. Like there's a period of time where that time freedom is like glorious. It's all, all your hopes and dreams. Just I wake up when I want, to go to sleep when I want, I eat when I want, I'm doing all the things and it feels wonderful. And then there's a point where it's like, what am I doing? What's happening around me? And maybe, retirement's a little different. I feel like folks with time freedom are bringing in income in some way, whether it's passive or, through being self-employed or some other thing. So there is work being done or commitments that are made if there's like volunteering, philanthropy, and that sort of thing as well. But I guess what I'm saying is, are we actually thinking about what this new life, specifically I'm talking about time freedom, but it could be something else. It doesn't have to be time freedom that we're talking about. How does the new life or this life that you're pursuing actually fit you as a person based on what you know about yourself? Sometimes we're pursuing things that are completely out of alignment with how we work. It's like someone who's extremely structured and enjoys the structure and likes the structure and all of these things now pursuing time freedom because now that is what is popular or what they're being told they should be doing and how they should be living. And if they're the right kind of, if they're thinking rightly or properly, if they care about themselves as much as they should, this is the direction they would be going in. But that genuinely may not be true. And it is possible that in pursuing this wrong thing, wrong for the person, not wrong because of any moral or ethical, issue, that they are now actually causing themselves harm, pursuing something that's not for them. It's not right for them. It doesn't align with who they are as a person or even how they want to move through the world. So I guess this is just amusing, as you're thinking about where you are with your goals, at the time I'm making this video, we're in June of 2026. So we're coming up on that halfway point in the year. And it's a time that people might stop and kind of reflect on how well they've, achieved the goals that they maybe set in January, and if they're on track, and if they want to pivot, if they want to make changes, if they want to double down or whatever. And as you're thinking about that, or if you haven't been, here's an invitation to do so. As you're thinking about that, also thinking about, am I still pursuing something that is in alignment with who I want to be, how I want to move through the world, and just how I operate? And being okay with that, because sometimes we know how we operate, but we don't like it. we know what would work for us, but we wish something else worked better for us, or we really, really wish we could move through the world in a certain way. I know for myself, sometimes I'll think, man, I have a hard time, and this is something I'm actively working on, receiving, allowing people to do things for me. Now, if somebody offers to pay for a meal for me, I'm not going to turn it down. If depending on the nature of relationship, context, all those things, I'm not going to turn it down. That hasn't always been the case. That's new-ish. I've worked on that for a while, but that same thing that I worked on here shows up in other areas. So the idea of receiving help can be hard. Having people, give a lot to me can be hard sometimes. So these are things I know about myself and I'm working on, and this feels beneficial to me. There are other things though about me that I know would be much harder for me to work on and truly change. I might be able to make some progress, but I don't know that I will ever not be the kind of person who, prefers a little more structure. I have all the context and a lot of information that can help me to be more go with the flow. I have become much more relaxed as I've gotten older. And at the same time, there are just certain things that I feel like that's just Zanaya. That's just what it's going to be. Even in my ability to more go with the flow and kind of relax and just let things be what they're going to be, there's tension in that for me. It's an active choice that I'm making to move through the world in that way, in those particular situations, versus it being what comes naturally to me. And these are things that I have to think about when I'm planning out my life and thinking about what might feel good, what might look good, what might actually work for me versus what might work for someone else. And that's not to say that I won't change. It's just saying that instead of being upset that I don't move through the world the way some other people do, and because I don't move through the world the way some other people do, there are certain life paths that would be really challenging for me to pursue unless there was some other, it was nurturing or appropriate in some other way. And instead of being upset with myself about that, because I have been upset with myself about like, man, I wish I could just do the things like this person does. Life would be so much easier. But that's not who I am. And I just have to honor who I am and go from there. I'm going to make way more progress, even on those areas that maybe I don't like too much, if I allow myself to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I am, instead of being difficult, with myself, being angry or upset that certain things are maybe not as easy and certain things are maybe a little bit more difficult. So that was a lot of words. But essentially, think about whether or not the path that you're pursuing is appropriate for you. Does it fit? When you think about it, does it feel really good? Or do you need to find a way to take a sabbatical, as they call it? Take an extended vacay. I know all the context of what's happening and all the things. So please don't come for me in terms of how you can go about making that happen. That's not my realm. That's not my space. My space is to give thoughtful questions and support and guidance, structures and strategies to help manage what you have on your plate. I help with time management and kind of mindset and asking good questions. That's one of the things that coaches do. They ask questions to help you get clear and think about things that maybe you may not be thinking about. So maybe time freedom specifically, because I use that example here, is not actually what you want. You might want to take 6 months off to relax, or a year, or whatever. Maybe you need a different structure. I know for myself, I've been fortunate enough where for a long time, I've had kind of non-traditional 9-to-5 jobs, whether I'm in the field traveling to people's houses, which gives me some time to maybe stop by a park for a little bit before I go to my next client. I was doing that sort of thing. I've had every other Friday off. I've worked remotely. I've been able to kind of bop around, but I've still had the structure of a traditional job in doing all of that. And that has been a very good fit for me for a long time. Might not be a great fit for someone else. So think about what actually fits for you, what you know about yourself. Yeah, I think that's it. What everyone else is saying is the path may not be the path for you. And this is not me saying, stay with your 9-to-5 and do this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, have you thought it through? Who you'll need to be for the new life, the work it may or may not take, who you are and what aspects of who you are you're going to have to care for and nurture in this new life. How might you go about doing that? And are you considering yourself in your plans? Are you considering yourself in your life plans? That's the question. So I think that's it. I think that's it for me. I think that's it. Please comment. I would love to hear what thoughts came up as you were watching this. If there was anything that you wanted to hear more about or anything that you want to share, I would love that. If you're not following me here, please do so. I'm also on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. All that information will be in the description below. I have an accountability group. I kind of want to stop referring to it as an accountability group because I don't think it gives folks enough context. I curate spaces to help people get things done. So if you're ready to actually start moving on the thing, Whether that thing is taking better care of yourself, whether that thing is going back to school, studying, career changer, pick a thing. You are trying to show up for your life. You are trying to show up more fully, more consistently, more regulated, and more structured for your life, even in the areas that might be unstructured. That's a whole other thing. But if you need someone to hold space for you, to provide guidance, to provide support, and you want to do that in community with other people who are doing the same kinds of things, please check out my Lightwork Lab community. The email address is, not the email address. That's not what I meant to say. The website is thelightworklab.com. So yeah, check me out. Check it out. There's a 7-day free trial if you join. If you're wanting to check it out, I would say around the first Sunday of the month is a good time, because that's when we do goal setting sessions on the first Sunday of the month. And then we have work sessions every Monday evening. So starting on a Sunday, first Sunday or a Monday might be, a good time to do that. I'm happy to answer questions. And yeah, thanks for listening. If you've gotten to this point, you've watched the whole video. I'm trying really hard not to swear. That must mean I'm feeling really comfortable on camera, because I don't swear like out in the world, but in my home when it's, I kind of have a potty mouth. Anywho, that's me. And I hope that the rest of your day, week, month, year goes well.